Should we start, Ravi?
Yes, we are good.
Okay. Okay.
We are live.
Great. Good morning, Ravi. Good morning, Shweta.
Hi, guys.
I think so. This is, I think, our second live stream, and it's kind of getting more and more interesting and exciting as we go. All right. And I think last night I had some interesting time I was spending trying to come up with what we should cover this morning. And I think I remember we covered happiness index last time, and then how games can be a great way to engage and still go ahead and create the impact in terms of the assessments that we have to assess skills, right? And I think from then I've been trying to explore some of the game options, and I think that one of those live streams is on the cards, right? So we'll come up with we told that last time, and we'll come up with that shortly. But today I think what I was thinking is there's so much going on, and I've been reading into analytics, how learning is changing. There's this learning analytics startup. They came up with a beautiful article which I was reading, and it was mostly around how organizational learning or professional learning is changing, right? And what all these leaders, so they had learning and L&D leaders or heads interviewed, and all of them kind of said, I think, three things. One is the way learnings used to happen, right? Traditional ways is not going to work anymore, or is not working. Second is in the hybrid model, obviously the learning strategy and the learning modes have to be different. And the pace at which learning has to happen has to be completely different. And I was trying to relate that to the masterclass yesterday, Ravi, that we were having, right? Interesting one where I think we were discussing about how organizations upskilling, reskilling, and continuous reskilling, all of that is essential. And I was trying to relate the two questions that I asked there. One was around the return on investment, and I think the points that I took back was most of the times the objective of the learning, right, is not met because the objectives are not set up upfront, right? We are not clear about the objectives of the learning that we are going through. And I think one of the things that stayed with me, which you mentioned yesterday, was I think it has to be bite-sized. It has to be micro learning, and it's like what principle we are following, right? Don't send someone for a communication training for 10 hours, 12 hours if they only need business email writing upskilling, right? So just give them a course of 30 minutes, 40 minutes and get them going. So on that, I think I was just trying to put something together, and I thought it'll be interesting. So what I just put few points for us to maybe go through, discuss. So one, I think, was what do we do with ourselves as individuals, professionals, right? As we transition from the traditional ways of learning, upskilling through the new ways, and who do we reach out to? Who do we take inputs from? So who do we create networks with? How do we do that, right? And the third one was uh, actual learning, right? And be open. So, and all of this probably is not only in the context of professionals who are in the industry, but also keeping in mind the student community that we are trying to build, right? And engage. And every day I make sure that I talk to at least two of them, right? Trying to understand what's exciting them, why they, do what they do. And yesterday I consciously spent time, about a couple of hours, after hearing that point, saying most of the times the learning objectives are not clear. So last night I spoke to two of them for 1 hour each, and most of the times I think the student communities, the students, they're not clear. But yesterday, surprisingly, one of them was very clear about what he wanted to do and why he was doing what he was doing. And it was really a good discussion. I think I'll pause here, but hear from both of you, and then.
Maybe Shweta can get into it. I have a couple of things that I want to reiterate from yesterday's session because I thought they're worthwhile talking about. But
Right.
let me just hear out Shweta first, and then I can come back and reiterate some of that. So go ahead, Shweta.
Sure.
Actually, if you see in terms of student, so I will like to talk about an interview I attended when I was like just finishing my BCom. What had happened was in that interview, the clarity of thought that I had was like, I will work with this organization for exactly 2 years and then go ahead to um, do on my MBA. So this is exactly what I told the interviewer. And so to my surprise, I was like, despite me telling I will be in your organization only for 2 years, the interviewer liked the fact that I had a clarity in thought and she picked me. I was amused at the fact that despite all this, I was like, okay, I'm sorry.
No, sorry, I just started the recording.
Yeah. So that was one thing. So I think having a clarity in thought and ensuring you communicate everything at the right time is also important. And as a student, I think the clarity in thought I had back then is not what I have right now. So it keeps changing. And Abhi, you were talking about what got us here will not get us there. So actually, I think I gave Abhi the book when we were back working together because it was there was a session where all the managers were supposed to be given this book, and I tried to source it, and I had given it to these guys. So I think what we have to do going forward will be like how feed forward instead of feedback is one way to go about it, and the book also talks about it. And I think for me, my manager in my last organization, she was very particular about in my year-end review not to talk about what I had done in the last year and how it was, but to take it forward, and how she wanted for me to be in the next year was a topic that we had discussed deeply on. Um any thoughts, anything that you guys might have?
Yeah. So let me pick up on a couple of things that you said. One is the fact that clarity is very important,
Very important.
but clarity changes. And I think that's a very key part. And it changes why? Because of a couple of things. One is it changes because the environment that you're in is changing. And so you need different things to cope with that environment. So that's one part. So the fact that it is changing means that you are growing in some way, or at least you're feeling the gap. So when you feel the burn, then you feel the growth. You're not taking a, let's say, example of being a runner. When you run, till the time you don't burn, you don't feel that you pushed yourself enough. You have to burn first. And that's the thing. When you start to feel that burn, that's the time that you're outside of your comfort zone into a zone where you're doing learning. And I think that's a good place to be. That's the first piece that I wanted to come back to you on Twitter. So I think the fact that you have now different clarities means you are good. You're actually learning something new and you are in a different space. So that's one great thing. I think the second thing is to circle back to what Abhi was saying around this whole concept of stacks, right? Or micro skills. One of the challenges that students will always have is that they are trying to become a T-shaped professional, right? I just want to show one quick slide because I think that's a relevant piece of the puzzle. So if you can enable sharing for me, Abhi, thank you. I would just show you the slide real quick. This is a piece that I picked up from AIHR. They talk about, and I'm using an HR example, but it's relevant even for a tech stack. It's relevant for all the different pieces. That's quite important for that. So in that sense, it's useful to look at a T-shaped professional. So students are actually learning that particular segment where they're going deeper, the competencies which require a longer piece of study. And that's where the programs come in. But there's a whole lot of broad skills which are actually micro credentials or micro skills that you can pick up. You don't need to be an expert on it. You just need to be good at it. In order for you to get to what you would classically call a talent stack. So a talent stack would be where, and this is a great example from Scott Adams, and he speaks quite extensively about talent stacks, is you try and find a way by which you become better, or at least you are more than 30-40% of your skill level in that. So at least you can stack different skills. So you have a depth, or you have a core skill that you're very good at, and then you stack other things. So for example, another guy who writes a lot about this is called Darius, and you've got his piece here as well, where he talks about the more type of stacking that you do, which is varied but interrelated, the much better you become, and much more valuable or employable you become. And that's quite interesting to see as well. Now, you don't need to go to a very large degree program for all of these. The stacks are usually skills that you gather over a period of time. And that's what leads to your role becoming a lot more hybrid. So I think this is quite crucial in the way that it lends itself to the way we are thinking of learning. So we should think of learning in a more deeper context, but we should also think of learning as picking up micro skills, which help us to become much better at what we do. So I think those are two things that that I wanted to play back to your comment. And this was also a great conversation yesterday at Workforce Singapore live stream. But I thought it's worth bringing it back up again for the broader community.
Yeah. I think
so I'll stop sharing for a second so that, oh, sorry, you guys had a comment then?
No, so I think while we talk about learning, we should also talk about unlearning and the concept that I think given everything is evolving at a constant speed, like never before, I think we should start unlearning. And it's a very key, I think, talent that we should acquire about not recollecting things that in the past we used to do something like this, but now we're changing the thing. So I think that is something we should talk about.
Absolutely. I think I completely accept your point of view that there is a constant degree of learning and unlearning that we need to do. And that's how you sort of get to that point where it becomes a lot more interesting for us to work on. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing so that it becomes easier for us to have a conversation. Okay, so we're back. So in the context of the student community, Abhi, how and Shweta, how do you see this, and what lessons can you ask the students to take away?
Yeah, so I think one definitely thing that I wanted to share, Avi, was to your point when the example that he took of the runners, and when the burnout happens is when actually the impact is happening, right? I remember this sharing by Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? We all know him. He's right, and he was in his initial days when his target was to become Mr. Universe, right? And he's sharing that he used to practice in the same gym where Muhammad Ali used to practice. So he used to see Muhammad Ali, and Muhammad Ali used to do some 200 sit-ups and push-ups and all of that. And then he goes to Muhammad Ali and asks that, how many do you do? And Muhammad Ali responded, I only start counting when I feel the pain. Right? Amazing message, I think. Amazing message, right? I think we don't do that. Most of us don't do that. But I think what I keep telling everyone is, and I'm trying to push that to everyone, is it just takes one step ahead of that level where we give up, right? It's not that, like you said, Ravi, it's not like huge learnings, huge things that we have to do, or huge kind of degree programs that we have to go for. It's just that one step ahead of beyond our comfort zone is the painful zone, right? But I think we just have to take that one step. Then there are people around who kind of extends their hand, gives you the support. So first of all, I think we have to get out of our comfort zone. And one person whom I really keep talking about is this ex-colleague of mine, senior person. He's one of the experts I learned storytelling from. He told me back in 2012 when I had a role change, just about 6 months or 8 months down the time. And I don't know how many times have I told all of you about this, but I walked into his workspace and he asked me, Abhi, how are you? I said, yes, Sid, everything is fine. He said, you're settled? I said, yeah. He said, then it's time to move on. And it was like a little lighter note, but I keep telling him also whenever I meet that, those are small messages I think we should pick up and never get complacent. And honestly, that's why one of the reasons I stick to this phone brand, OnePlus 5. Their brand thing was never settle, right? And I don't know, somehow that was the only reason I stuck to OnePlus 5, right? So I think one thing definitely is never settle, I think, but I think the second thing is seek clarity, what Shweta was mentioning. Shweta, clarity changes, but seek clarity. Yesterday, I was talking to one of these students who said, I love people and that's why I want to do HR. That's not what that's not, I said, you'll start hating people when you get into HR. Okay. At least in some of the instances. And
That was that's probably true for all jobs, though.
yeah,
You
yeah,
get to you get to elements of the job which you don't like, but I think predominantly, if you are a people person and you love those pieces, then it might be worth considering. But I
yeah,
think the point that you're making is slightly different, which is know why, know your why
exactly.
much more clearly than just say
Yeah,
I'm a people
yeah,
person. I
yeah,
don't think
yeah,
that works that way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And the second person whom I spoke to yesterday was so clear. He had done a BTech. So my question always is, why are you doing an MBA HR after a BTech? Right? What kind of drove you towards an MBA HR? He was very clear. He was working with an organization, an IT company, where he was doing SAP. He was an SAP developer, and he was working on internal HR systems. So then I saw how clear, how much clarity he had. He worked there for 2 years. He knows the systems side of how HR systems work. Now he wants to gain knowledge on the domain, which is the functional side. And he wants to become somewhere, maybe the HR, either the corporate space where COEs of tech transformation, but then he brings about his background of BTech, merges it with the functional learning, and then is looking at a career path, which I thought was, at least I didn't have that much clarity when I joined MBHR, right? So they're both the extremes is what I wanted to cover today, right? And there are folks, students who have clarity. Others, I think, just need to find out their why. Like you said, I think Simon Sinek always says, like, start with the why. Uh, yeah, so I think those are the few things from my end, Ravi, today. I think, and the last thing is network. I think we start networking very late in the game, right? So what I'm trying to tell everyone is, don't lose any opportunity to connect with someone whom you've never spoken, or recreate a connection which was lost. Just take every opportunity to do that, right? That's what my MBA mentor, Chris Haroon, he talks saying, your network is your net worth, right? Yeah.
Yeah, are we talking
So
of network? This was one of the first lessons that we learned while stepping into an MBA college. I did like a thing where we were in a hostel and we were always constantly drilled into our heads saying you have few people from your previous batch, you will have people from the next batch, you have people from your batch, and you're going to be interacting with them on a daily basis. So ensure you build that connection and network, because
Yeah.
they might not be of help immediately, but later on, when
Yep.
things grow and you grow, you will definitely want to connect with a few of them. And the fact that you have lived in the same place for a particular time will always be a start of the conversation. And
Common. Yeah.
yeah, so that was one thing. And for students, I feel like it's my 2 cents. Like, marks are not everything. We do not have to drive towards getting greater marks. It's about the connection and the network we build. And more importantly, to set some goal for even if it's a short term thing, to set it and then to move towards it. And if you're looking for a change, the change should start immediately, and it should start like at the moment you decide that you need the change. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I think I want to pick up on one thing, Shweta, which I think is not just relevant to students, but also what you said is so much relevant to what many professionals are struggling with. We tend to give a lot more emphasis on achievement and marks. And I think it sort of comes down from our conditioning. We are conditioned through our, let's say, family setups, to our society, through our education systems, that the only way to measure is that particular, 1 hour or 1.5 hours, whatever frame of mind you were in, and that's good or bad, that's how it works. I think one of the things that we've learned is the minute you step out from a university or a college into a working life, those metrics changed very drastically. This has also been my experience of personally stepping into colleges 2 times, in and out, as well as working with interns a lot, and with professionals a lot, because the frames are so disjointed sometimes. The expectations are so disjointed that you tend to come out with a frame, and then that just doesn't gel with anything. So I think you have a great point in saying, let's look at not just a way of learning something and getting marks, but what are you going to do? I mean, yesterday, I want to reference that one particular point that was very powerful, that was, I think, made by Wayne and Melvin yesterday in the live stream. They said, it's not just what you learn, but how well are you able to apply it within the context of your organization or your project that makes the big difference. And I think that's a huge part of the learning which communities of practice and the communities that we are working on with students provide. That is, how can you become much more effective at applying things, not just a repository of information or knowledge, but how can you actually become a person who can execute and make things happen. I think those are really awesome skills to have in a corporate.
And then just on a ending note or closing note, Ravi, I think it's like the safety net, right? You have people who are in the same path, same journey as you are, and no one's judging you, right? Because everyone is. I think that mindset piece that you mentioned is very important. The communities of practice, I think, breaks that, saying, "Don't worry, no one is judging you. Just go and post." And I think the top tier IT companies, the sales communities are doing awesome. Their revenue alignment is like $million, hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Is the valuation of that communities, because they're actually helping the sales folks on the field to close leads, to convert cold sales into actual leads. And I think people on the community who've gone through the experience are just sharing, hey, do this, just say this or do this. And they've had this amazing way of coming up with the monetary value of how what value the community created, right? So we may not be wanting to do that right now with the student community, but I think when I keep talking about the engagement scorecard, or coming up with the corporate readiness scorecard, I see that the realization comes in with the students that, I think they understand. So I think that's where I think I would personally stay connected or keep connecting on a one-on-one basis to convey the value. And I'm sure, I think at some point we'll have a lot of students, the engagement should kind of be high. That's my message, saying come and engage on the platform.
Great message. Shweta, anything for you to wrap up?
I'm good. I think you can do the wrapping up.
Awesome. Then I would like to thank everybody who joined today. We will repost this out for others to view at your own pace. We will also be posting these videos now that we do on the community itself. So if you've missed it, you can actually go to the community and you can have a look at the recorded version there. So it allows you to replay that back. So thank you both. I think it's been a great exchange, and let's come back again next week with another set of live streams.
Sure. Thanks, Ravi. Thanks for this.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.